Hello everyone. If you've seen yesterday's videos, you already know that it was it was lengthier than the recent videos, and there was a lot of discussion as well. So it was not that it was just fluff, but there was a lot of deep discussion, and it was little longer than usual than I'd have liked it to be. So today I'm hoping that it'll be a little bit more crisp. So let's get started. First one is from Mind for Numbers. These overly picky theoreticians criticize the real experts in the films for issues such as not taking the time to stop and measure where to put their hands. Precise rule following had come to mean more to the instructors than practicality. Okay, so this is in context of um, the supposed expert becoming pedantic about things, and so there was this experiment. I forget all the details about it, but there was this that people who were actually skilled at something, they were recorded doing their activities, and then other theoreticians, they were called to review them, and they criticized the real experts for skipping on some things. uh, you know I'm again, like I said, I don't remember clearly what did they forget on, but I think like the example given over here, not taking the time to stop and measure where to put their hands. I can't remember what it refers to, but again, I think it was about being pedantic, and the theoreticians, or the people they were trying to evaluate, um, they turned out to be very very pedantic, and they gave up on practicality, and precise rule following was more important than practicality, and we see that in real life sometimes, right? It's not I don't think so we have to stretch too much to imagine what this might be. We see this all the time in different activities. There are some people who give up on practicality and follow rules just for the sake of following rules without understanding why we follow rules. The reason is important, right? Of course, the rules are there for a reason, and if you don't know the reason, you'll always try to apply it pedantically in all the situations, and not apply context, which is more important, I feel. The rules are important. They have their place, and their place is usually in the context, and if you're missing the context, you're not going to apply rules to the best possible way. So this is a common discussion that comes up in while programming comes up with the discussion of best practices, and many people dislike the name best practices for that very reason. The word best practices kind of implies that there is no better practice available anywhere or in any situation. This is the absolute best. I don't think so. The person who coined the term meant that, and in any case, I understand the connotation. Like appreciating this, I kind of given up using the name. I kind of use something like standard practices, or most appropriate practice at that particular time. But yeah, it's the same thing over here, that the best practice, it picked up that connotation that it's the absolute best, and people disliked it, because of course there's no practice which applies in all situations equally. At certain times, there is some other practice that's more important, and there is this classical answer to every question: it depends. That's the real life. It depends. That's Things are always contextual. Anyway, let's move on. 7.5 lessons about the brain. It's impossible to change your past, but right now, with some effort, you can change how your brain will predict in the future. You can invest a little time and energy to learn new ideas. You can curate new experiences, you can try new activities. Everything you learn today seeds your brain to predict differently tomorrow. Right. I think this is pretty clear. The author is really talking about, this is the key phrase: changing how your brain will predict in the future. So this is in the chapter about how brains predict things that are going to happen, and we have discussed a few examples in the past videos. So it's not about changing the behavior. I mean, this is what it means, really. In my opinion, this is what it means. With some effort, you can change your behaviors, you can change your responses to things. And the author is phrasing it in this way, that you can change how your brain will predict in the future, because those are what responses are. A brain jumping to a conclusion, based on the previous experiences. So it goes into that system one, system two thinking, from thinking fast and slow, and a lot of other things, but I don't think I should go into that right now. So I'll skip it for today. Team topologies. This is a pretty long one. Enabling teams actively avoid becoming ivory towers of knowledge, dictating technical choices for other teams to follow, while helping teams to understand and comply with organization-wide technology constraints. This is akin to the idea of servant leadership, but applied to team interactions rather than individuals. The end goal of an enabling team is to increase the autonomy of streamlined teams by growing their capabilities with a focus on the problems first, not the solutions per se. If an enabling team does its job well, the team that it is helping should no longer need the help from the enabling team after a few weeks or months. There should not be a permanent dependency on an enabling team. So to understand this highlight, we first need to understand what are these enabling teams and streamlined teams, and that's going to take some time. I'm not going to go into that right now. If you're very much interested in this, I highly recommend this book, Team Topologies, for understanding it. So I'm just going to jump straight into the. I'm just going to assume that you know what these terms mean, and jump into my reflections. This is highly similar to my yesterday's highlight about DevOps teams becoming redundant. And if you think about it, then DevOps team could be called as one sort of enabling team, which is not how it works today or nowadays. In most organizations, DevOps team is a discrete team, and people kind of treat it as a platform team. And while the expectations are kind of with with what you have with an enabling team, so there is a mix over here, and I think that's the reason why this DevOps movement has a lot of confusion surrounding it. What is it really? I mean, if you really study into it, you understand that it's a culture. It's not just that you have a team that specializes in infrastructure, but it's a lot more. It's how you write applications. You have to change your mindset in a lot of different ways. So if you think of DevOps team as an enabling team, and this paragraph makes it clear that how the DevOps team is supposed to perform, to work, to help support other teams, other streamlined teams in the organization, and it really the interaction happens in the form of an enabling team, not in the form of platform team. And that's a whole different thing. If you're talking about platform engineering, which most DevOps team end up doing nowadays, that's a whole different discussion. But over here, we're talking about enabling teams. And the end goal of an enabling team, like this highlight says, is to increase the autonomy of stream-aligned teams. So the stream-aligned teams, the teams that are actually delivering the project or the product, the goal is to increase the autonomy of those teams. That's the DevOps culture. You don't have that proverbial throwing the ball over the wall, to the operations team, and then the operations team returns the ball over the wall, and they're not really talking to each other. That's the old model. And today we have teams, we have the infrastructure, we have the tooling necessary to, so that the streamlined team can take ownership of the entire life cycle of the product, from development to deployment, and it's running running on the production servers. And how does this come about? How does the streamlined team get to that stage? It is with the help of a DevOps team, and but when it's applied as an enabling team, like this highlight says, and there should not be a permanent dependency on this team, because once the streamlined team has picked up the skills, has picked up the ownership of the process, there is no need for the separate DevOps team, and that's really what DevOps is all about. Like we discussed yesterday. Well, it's getting long. Let's move on. Extreme ownership. While a simple statement, the commander's intent is actually the most important part of the brief. When understood by everyone involved in the execution of the plan, it guides each decision and action on the ground. Very quickly, the commander's intent is why we are why we have that activity, or why we have that process, or why we have that project itself. In this case, why there is this mission. Why are they going on that mission? What is the intent behind it? Not what you're going to do over there, but what is the intent? And that is something like aligning on the purpose. Building the alignment between the team on the purpose, and that's the most important thing to get started with the rest of the activities. Um, let's move on again in the interest of time. Remote, not distant. GitLab, the poster child for remote work, believes that transparency is vital but not enough. GitLab prioritizes open discourse over private discourse. People must address conflict out in the open. GitLab is famous for its open handbook, and it has a very free license. It's actually an inspiration for us in our own open handbook at my organization at Accelerant. So yeah, I think it's this is something I believe too. The transparency is vital, but it's not enough. There should be an openness in the discourse as well, which is again another thing at Accelerant that I've tried to build. Um, Collectively, we have open channels. We default to open channels by to begin with. Anyway, I think this can go into loops. So let's move on. Working backwards. I heard him say many times that if we wanted Amazon to be a place where builders can build, we need to eliminate communication, not encourage it. When you view effective communication across groups as a defect, the solutions to your problems start to look quite different from traditional ones. He suggested that each software team should build and clearly document a set of application program interfaces for all their system services. The him in this highlight refers to Jeff Bezos. And I think there is another thing that's very famous, with Jeff Bezos. He wants each team to treat everybody else as a potential attacker. So in their team, the service that each team is building, their API should be, first of all, they should treat every other team as a customer, even the in-organization teams, they should be treated as customer. And at the same time, each customer, as you know, if you're building web services, you know that each potential customer could also be a attacker. So similarly prepare, so you're designing your APIs from that perspective. And this was really interesting. We needed to eliminate communication. And the idea is, of course, it's not to bring it down to zero. It is to make it very, very optimal, very, very, very effective. And I feel there is a whole discussion over here about, why communication fails so often. And that is why in teams, you really need to start looking at alternatives, from the perspective of culture, or the perspective of, on the other extreme end, on the perspective of setting up contracts, like APIs in this case. API is a contract in a way. So setting up contracts or setting up culture where either everything is explicitly understood or implicitly understood, and eliminating communication. And this really means eliminating communication as in one-off communication. When you're going to set those APIs, yeah, you are going to have some form of communication, but then that's it. That is what is going to be used as long as it's appropriate. Which is, of course, a very difficult challenge. And how do you know it's no longer appropriate? But that's a whole different discussion again. So let's move on. The voltage effect. The Bacon's principle or marginal principle, the rule that money spent in the past should have no influence over rational decisions made in the present. The dollars already spent are long gone, is sunk cost. Now it's only return on the next dollar spent that matters. I think we discussed something similar yesterday as well. The value of the next incremental dollar should be judged, not how much you budgeted for it in the past. That's the old style of management, of course. And with today's agility, today's activities need a much higher level of agility, and you need a different understanding of activities, or a different understanding of sunk cost, to a deeper understanding of sunk cost, I should say, to make those decisions. Again, I'm trying to move ahead, get it done. When you make a goal too abstract, it becomes vague. It may not be linked to a specific set of actions and is therefore difficult to actively pursue. I think this is pretty clear. And it's kind of linking with the other discussions we have had with, in the context of getting things done. So if the goal is too abstract and you can't derive actions from it, it's not really going to help you. It's going to be difficult to pursue, which is why one of the strongest recommendations in getting things done is to identify the first action, and we have talked about it before. So I'm going to move on. Cues. There is one more critical aspect of mirroring successfully. Mirror what you want to magnetize. Don't mirror negative body languages. This will only highlight it. Effective mirroring is about matching and emphasizing positive, curious, engaging body language. This creates a positive feedback loop. I think it's pretty clear. Mirroring refers to, mirroring body language, mirroring the postures, or mirroring the facial expressions and that sort of thing. It's important, but again, I think it's pretty clear, so I'm going to move on. Originals. Instead of getting mad in the tunnel vision of your imagination, by looking out into the world, you improve the acuity of your peripheral vision. To me, this again refers to the generalization and specialization discussions we have had a lot of times. So it's talking about, with the generalization, you actually improve the effectiveness of your peripheral vision. You can spot more things over there, and that's how you really identify things on the edge which are going to become new standard things. Well, so let's move on. Again, I'm going to skip this. So that brings us to the end of today's highlights. It's a little shorter than yesterday, but it's still quite longer, much longer than my usual, recent usual. And yeah, I think at least the first couple of quotes, they were we went into a deep discussion for that. But I think it was a good discussion, and it was a good reflection on my part as well. So that's it for today. Have a good day.